When I was younger, I remember contemplating basic premises such as, is it just me, or does Australia have no culture? How naive I was. Aboriginals have the longest existing culture on Earth, and many Indigenous language groups embrace dream-time creation stories, whilst valuing connection to country. Our multicultural Australia encompasses many varied approaches to cultural activities, and well, we celebrate Easter and search for eggs, go to the church to pray, the mall to shop, the RSL to experience cuisine, barbecues with friends and family, organised sport with the kids, and the footy to revel in a home victory, just like everyone else, and that's all culture. This hub of activity encourages and promotes Aussie character traits like mateship and teamwork, deeply ingrained in our national ethos since being patriotically forged in the heat of battle of World War I and before. My great-grandfather wrote a lot about mateship in his memoirs, using the oldest form of media, the fountain pen and ink. But his culture was much different to our culture today. For the 20 years prior to his World War I expedition, Val had been involved in the reserves, exercising skills in warfare in a colonial Anglo-dominated society, which glorified war and highlighted the importance of fighting for king and country. During this tumultuous era, racism was prevalent towards both Indigenous First Nations people and the various opposing forces on the battlefield. Surprisingly, Val may not have even met an Aboriginal during his encounters in Melbourne. Despite this unfamiliarity, records indicate First Nations people and regular Aussies fought side by side in all of Australia's major conflicts, as depicted on my Sacred Era t-shirt featuring World War II veteran Percy Sully. By the time Val embarked on his great adventure, it was apparent through his writings that he was thrilled to be handed the opportunity to carry out his life's work as a member of the Australian Field Artillery in the Australian Corps, using his acquired skills to great effect. Valentine's book was published by one of our relatives. I believe that everyone's story deserves to be told, and while its dissemination was retained at a family level, I found his language and stoic Aussie attitude likely to appeal to anyone interested in history, as they provide a relevant depiction of life during that era. Major Valentine Meads received the second highest honour granted by the Australian Imperial Force, the Military Cross, for an act of gallantry in World War I, just one of a total of 2,930 awarded to Australian soldiers since 1914. Yet despite this citation for gathering intelligence behind enemy lines, he's just a one-page statistic on the War Memorial website. Upon leaving school, I fostered hopes of joining the Army Reserve too, and constantly worked on improving my fitness. But mental illness proved to be the barrier between me and my commando dreams. I discovered that in reality, I was living in a video game, consumed by violence and survival. As the war in Iraq continued its fierce hostility during 2003, every day aboard the bus to college, I would hear on the radio more and more devastating news about another 60 US Marines blown up by roadside bombs. The world was a scary place, and to compound this, natural disasters became commonplace. The Army Reserve, which Val would have experienced as facilitating preparation for major conflict, was now primarily intended to support international peacekeeping and humanitarian efforts. And boy did we need it with the Boxing Day tsunami of 2004, a tribute to a caring Australia where our cultural values have become synonymous with cooperation and respect towards a diverse range of nationalities. International relief is essential, but as society appreciates the government's relief aid packages in relation to the recent bushfires and flooding events, as a nation we should not disregard the biggest battle of all, mental health. An attempt to fulfill our nation's motto of mate for mate, just like on the battlefield. Suicide rates and mental health admissions continue to escalate to unacceptable levels. As someone who has experienced mental health issues both personally and in a social context, I support the conversation starter in a culture where masculine attitudes of feeling too proud to seek help are all too common. My engagement with a weekly men's group at a church in Canberra last year allowed me to speak out, enjoy human connection and experience mateship, whilst appreciating religious, musical and cultural expression through interaction in events such as the Christmas Bushfire Appeal fundraiser. I found myself surrounded by other men many of whom participate in the local hip hop scene as Christian or conscious rap artists, and I naturally inherited the vibe. This assisted my artistic growth and cultural awareness in hip hop, a knowledge system that I had previously discovered at the Belconnen Art Centre's Talk Black Hip Hop workshop with MC Wiz. Despite becoming dismissive of Christianity in my youth, resulting from a rebellious identity and outlook on the world, I renewed my interest in faith. This demonstrates the role education and wisdom has on assisting the development of my new informed positionality. I discovered that the power of religion strengthens my delivery in an art form which allows me to express myself verbally by venting my emotions. My old man used to recount stories and recollect on his grandfather Valentine's motto. I rang him up the other day for a yarn.
Myron used to say, use the skills you are taught and apply them in your profession.
I wonder if my great-grandfather was alive today, would he be proud of me, or would he be disappointed at my current unemployed status during these uncertain economic times, arrogantly studying at university instead of applying my skills towards something useful?
He'd be proud, mate. He'd say an educated man is a good man.
He reflects further on his father Rupert's groundbreaking flight involving picking up a convoy in San Diego before flying across Canada, Greenland, Britain to collect migrants, Europe, India and Southeast Asia, before landing in Darwin.
Dad wasn't congratulated by Val on receiving the member of the British Empire because he flew supplies instead of volunteering for the Air Force in World War II. Maybe he thought it was un-Australian. God, he was a proud soldier.
I reflect on the strong masculine culture which persists in today's defence industry. My dad chuckles.
Oh, it wasn't like he was a bully, Myron. But he was incredibly patriotic, just a proud Australian who wanted his son to honour his country like he had.
So I'm raising a glass to all of our veterans, and if my great-grandfather was looking down on me today from the heavens, he'd be proud as punch. It'd make Valentine's Day, I mean the figure of speech, not that commercial-generated day of romance, distributing more roses and tulips than Floriade. So let the guitars play. Let the retrofitted Mark III didgeribones reverberate the airwaves, and let the snaggers sizzle in this 40-degree Australian heat. Let our culture resonate.